Happy Friday, folks. In today's video, we're going to be talking about the 5 players who I think the Detroit Lions will have a breakout season this year, both offense and defense. Now, some of the names on here is very familiar, but I'm going to give you the reason why I think they have the breakout year, even though they kind of had some already. And then some players didn't have much of a season, but I think they absolutely could have a breakout year this year. So let's start this thing right now. If you are not a fan of the Chicago Bears and you love the Detroit Lions, you're going to want to subscribe to this channel. Why is that? Because we talk Lions here, and we're not a big fan of the Chicago Bears in the NFC North. So go ahead and subscribe to the channel as we get this thing going. So in this video right here, folks, we're going to go over 5 players who I think is going to have a breakout season this year. Again, offense, defense, and different reasons why each player is going to have a breakout. So let's go over this list right now. No particular order, just going one players, not one over the other. The first player on my list who I do think will have a breakout season this year is Jameson Williams. Jameson Williams, the Lions wide receiver, finally is going to be sitting at that number 2 spot as Josh Reynolds no longer in this football team, and they clearly believe in Jameson Williams. And if you look at last year, what he was doing by the end of the year, I'd say the second half of the season, predominantly maybe 3/4, is Jameson Williams was catching everything. He was making big-time plays. He was doing it in the slot on the outside. He was taking hits in the middle, and he was doing big plays. So Jameson Williams is really showing a physical part of his game that we haven't really seen yet, and kind of take it in that Dan Campbell, Amon-Ra St. Brown type of role, where if it's a physical route he's going to have to do and catch the football, he's going to have to do it. So that's what he did last year, and to me, he proved his value, and each game he was getting better and better. Why is that? Because him and Jared Goff are on the same page, and when you're on the same page, you're going to see the production rise, and that's something that I've been preaching about Jameson Williams since we drafted him. Just be patient, because it takes a little bit of time for wide receivers to adapt to Jared Goff, and it takes some time when you're generally not on the field year 1, right, except for the very end, limited. Then year 2, you get in trouble with gambling. It takes a little bit of time, and it is starting to develop. At the end of the year, you could see it clear as day, and I do think it's going to continue, and he'll have over 1,000 yards this season. Well, close to it, maybe a 900 to 1,000 in that range. Who is a breakout player for you guys? Who do you think is going to have a breakout season? Let me know in the comments below. Next player on my list here who I think is going to have a breakout year. Now, he had a breakout year last year, but I think it's really going to take it to the next level, and that is the defensive tackle for the Detroit Lions, Alim McNeill. And why do I think that he's going to have a breakout year even more than what he did last year? This is simply math here, folks. They got DJ Reader, who they brought in, is going to be the run stuffer, and it's going to open up for Alim McNeill, and he's going to have an opportunity to do some pass rush. And with DJ Reader in there, and of course you already have Aiden Hutchinson, you can't double everybody. And Alim McNeill is going to have a lot of opportunity this year to sack the quarterback. He did it last year, 5 sacks, and he did it with less talent around him. And I think the Detroit Lions are going to have more talent, obviously, because we picked up more talent. And we have an opportunity finally to get a little more aggressive with the new defensive line coach. So I think Alim McNeill is going to take that next step and really solidify him as one of the better defensive tackles in all of football this year. Even though he did that last year, I think it's going to be even more. I think it's going to be an eye-opening type of season for Alim McNeill. And that's going to be an interesting part, because we haven't extended Alim McNeill yet, and if he does exceed the expectations of at least what I expect or what somebody else expects, you know the bank for him is going to be a lot when it's time to re-sign him. That's why I've been preaching sign Alim McNeill already, but it hasn't been done yet. So that's going to be an interesting discussion when the season is over, is what do we do with Alim McNeill, because finally he has developed into a really dynamic defensive player, not just run stuffer, not just he's a game changer now. And so when you have a game changer on the defensive line, you try to hold on to those players, because it's quite difficult to get a guy, especially in the 3rd round. And when you get Levi in the same draft and he busts out, you want to have one of these guys that does a phenomenal job. And I do believe Alim McNeill is one of those guys. I think it's going to have a breakout season in 2024. And I'm super excited for him. A lot of people like Alim McNeill, as do I. He's awesome. I think he's a great player. I think he's phenomenal. athlete, and I'm excited to see what he can do on this defensive line this year. So I think he's going to have a successful season in 2024. Next player on my list who I have a breakout campaign is a player who we barely got to see a lot of, but if you actually paid attention, he's catching everything that was thrown his way at the end of the year, and that's Donovan Peoples-Jones. I think Donovan Peoples-Jones is going to have a breakout year this year because, again, Josh Reynolds is gone, and someone's got to fill that void. Jameson Williams is going to fill some of it, but you still need another player, and why not be Donovan Peoples-Jones, the big body contested catch wide receiver that the Lions traded for at the trade deadline last year? Big body, and he catches everything. And he was catching everything at the end of the year. He was. Now, he wasn't in a lot of plays because he just got to Detroit. He got traded. And it takes, when we just talk about Jameson Williams, it takes a little bit of time for the receivers to get on the same page with Jared Goff. Well, guess what, folks? He has a full offseason now. A full offseason training camp with Jared Goff. And I think he can have a really good season with the Lions this year. I'm talking maybe like 600 yards, basically filling in the Josh Reynolds role. I think he can do that. He's got the size. And you know that Jared Goff's going to throw it up to him at some point. He could be in the slot shockingly at his size, and he could play an X receiver out there. So he's multi-dimensional type of player. You just don't hear a lot about him. And now when the Browns traded him away, look, Watson was a bad quarterback for them, right? Baker Mayfield's not the greatest quarterback in the NFL, and he put up pretty decent numbers with Baker. Now, it's with Watson, not a whole lot, but Watson's also a mess. So I think the Detroit Lions are going to have a player here in Donovan Peoples-Jones that's going to make a big difference for the Lions on offense. Again, 600 yards, the Josh Reynolds role. That's a big difference. It is quite a bit, and if he could be the guy that catches those first downs like Reynolds did a lot on third and fourth down, that would be gigantic. What I do like about Donovan Peoples-Jones over Josh Reynolds, even though I really like Josh Reynolds, by the way, is the fact that Josh Reynolds fumbled the ball quite a bit after reception. Donovan Peoples-Jones is not one of those guys. Most wide receivers are not one of those guys. It just so happens to be that we had guy in Josh Reynolds who big time play for the Lions, and I do wish him the best. And I do think he's a good wide receiver, and I wish we probably would have had him. But I think Donovan Peoples-Jones can do the job. I really can. I think he can come in here and help out the Lions. Next player on my list is a player who's not on the Lions last year. He's not on the Lions this year. He had a bad, I don't want to say bad year, but a turbulent year last year. Injuries and lack of play, but I think he's going to do phenomenal here. And that is cornerback Carlton Davis, whom we traded for from the good old Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I not a lot of expectations for Carlton Davis, third-round pick that we traded for, but I actually have high expectations for Mr. Davis here. He actually played really well when he was healthy. Before this season, he was showing a lot of promise, a lot of good play, and if you actually watch him, he sticks with the receiver. So I think with the Detroit Lions and with Terrion Arnold and getting Amik Robertson and more of aggressive a defensive line, it could make a player like Carlton Davis, who we traded for, be extremely valuable for the Lions this season. I think he's going to come in here and he's going to settle down the cornerback room. I think he's going to be better than what Cam Sutton was, because Cam Sutton was a bust of a free agent. I think he's going to finally bring some relief to the Lions secondary. He's not the greatest cornerback in the world, but I think he's going to have a breakout year. He had a down year last year. I think he's going to have a really big year this year. And the question's going to be for the Detroit Lions. I think that the question's been answered, but it's not 100% as of right now, is if he does have a breakout year this up and coming season, he's only on a 1-year deal. Do the Lions bring him back? Because we've gotten Terrion Arnold, we drafted in an Ennis Rakestraw. I think that the answer is probably not going to bring him back regardless of what he does. But if he has a breakout season and Lions don't sign him, another team does with the big cash, you can get your third-round pick back with the compensatory draft pick. So that's something you got to watch out for as well, is that's what the Lions' probably strategy is. I know a lot of people was salty about third-round pick, but if he comes in here and he does a solid job for the Lions, it's absolutely worth it, because we have not had solid work at the cornerback position since Darius Slay. It's been a really long time since we have some good secondary pieces. So I'm really excited for Carlton Davis, who's going to come here. I'm excited for the whole secondary, because I think they're completely revamped. Let me know in the comment section, what do you think? Who's another player you think is a breakout that I'm not talked about? Last player on my list, and you're going to say he can't be a breakout player because he broke out last year. Yeah, well, I kind of understand what you're saying right there, but I think he's going to assert himself as the number one. I think he's going to assert himself as the best player at his position this year. I do think so. And you're going to say, oh, no way, it's going to be other players. Like other running backs. Because I think that Jahmyr Gibbs is going to have a breakout year this year. I talk about breakout. I think this guy is going to be the one of the players that's going to have a significant breakout season on offense in all of the NFL is Jahmyr Gibbs. This guy is special. He's fast. He's elusive. He is now patient, as you watched throughout his development this past season. He got better waiting for the hole to open up. He's super explosive, and I think he's going to assert himself as the number one running back this year because he only got 1 year left with David Montgomery. It's time for him to take the next step, and I think he's going to assert himself as the best running back in the NFL. So when you're putting yourself as the best running back in football, I think that's a breakout year. And last year, you could make an argument he was the best running back last year. But this year, I think he's going to assert himself as there's not going to be much of an argument. Christian McCaffrey, a really good running back, but he's also getting older, and he has wear and tear in his body. I think Gibbs is going to take that next step. You got Bijan Robinson, that's a pretty good running back, but I still like what Jahmyr Gibbs is going to do. Saquon Barkley, he goes over there to the Philadelphia Eagles. He could be good. I still think that Jahmyr Gibbs is going to be the best running back in football next year. Pro Bowl, all of that. He catches out of the backfield. He's a wide receiver, and you know without having Reynolds in there now that they're going to give more passes to Jahmyr Gibbs. This guy is just a superstar, and I think he could be up there with Offensive Player of the Year. That's the type of season I think that Jahmyr Gibbs is going to have. Maybe he had less than 1,000 yards. I think it was 945 this past season. Maybe get to like 1,500 or something like that this year. The all-purpose could be significantly high. I mean, we're talking a lot. So those are my 5 players for Lions breakout. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below and give me your thoughts on who you think will break out in 2024.